Have you ever contemplated what would happen if you found yourself lost in complete darkness? Let's ponder that for a moment. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? The absolute void, the uncertainty of the unseen, and the eerie silence can send shivers down anyone's spine. This fear of the dark, or rather the fear of what could be lurking in the shadows, is a primal instinct that haunts us. In the next few minutes we will delve into this fear, not to scare you but to understand it. Imagine for a moment, you're in a place devoid of any light. Suddenly, without warning, you're plunged into an abyss of inky blackness. All familiar landmarks, all signs of comfort, vanish in an instant. You're left standing alone in a world that has been swallowed by darkness. The first wave that hits you is a sense of disorientation. Your eyes strain, desperately searching for a hint of light, a glimmer of hope. But there's nothing. The darkness is all-encompassing, a thick blanket that smothers all sight. Your heart begins to race, the rhythm echoing in your ears like a drumbeat of fear. Next comes the confusion. Your brain struggles to make sense of the sensory deprivation. You reach out, hands flailing, trying to grasp onto anything tangible. But there's only the cold, empty air. You take a step forward, then another, but each stride feels like a leap into the unknown. It's like walking on a tightrope, suspended in a void with no beginning or end. Panic starts to creep in, a chilling whisper in the back of your mind. You're lost, the voice says, alone. This isn't a nightmare you can wake up from. This is reality. You call out, your voice echoing back at you, a haunting reminder of your isolation. Yet, amidst the fear and uncertainty, a sense of determination begins to rise. You refuse to be defeated by the darkness. You take a deep breath, steeling yourself for the challenge ahead. You may be lost. You may be alone, but you are not helpless. You have your senses, your mind, your will. You have the power to navigate through the darkness, to find your way back to the light. But then, just as you're gathering your strength, you feel it. A subtle shift in the atmosphere. The darkness seems to grow denser, more oppressive. It's as if the shadows are closing in, reaching out with phantom fingers to ensnare you. Your heart skips a beat. The darkness is no longer just an absence of light. It's a living, breathing entity, a monster lurking in the shadows. As the minutes pass, the darkness begins to play tricks on your mind. The darkness, the silence, it's deafening. Your mind starts racing. In the complete absence of light, something curious happens. The mind, in its desperate search for stimuli, begins to manufacture its own. Thoughts start to bubble up from the depths of your subconscious, like a stream gushing forth from a spring. They race around your mind, chasing each other in a whirlwind of confusion and fear. As the minutes turn into hours, your sense of time begins to warp. Each second feels like a minute, each minute an hour. The silence is so profound that you can hear your own heartbeat, a steady thud echoing in the void. It's a stark reminder of your existence in this sea of nothingness. Anxiety starts to creep in, like an unwelcome guest. It's a gnawing feeling at the pit of your stomach, a persistent whisper in your ear. It tells you that you're lost, that you'll never find your way out. It feeds on your fear, growing stronger with each passing moment. You try to fight it, to push it down, but it's a relentless adversary. It's a battle of wills, a struggle for control. The fear is not just of the darkness, but of what it represents, the unknown, the unpredictable, the uncontrollable. In the midst of this internal turmoil, you realize something. You're not just battling the darkness, you're battling your own mind. It's your thoughts, your fears, your anxieties that are the real enemies. They're what's making the darkness so terrifying, so overwhelming. And so, you start to fight back. You force yourself to breathe deeply to calm your racing heart. You tell yourself that it's okay, that you're okay. You focus on the sound of your own breathing, the rhythm of your own heartbeat. It's a small comfort, but it's something. The darkness, it's not just an absence of light, it's a presence, a weight on your shoulders, but it's also a mirror, reflecting back at you your deepest fears and anxieties. It's a test of your resilience, your strength, your sanity. The darkness is not just an absence of light, it becomes a presence, a weight on your shoulders. In the absence of sight, your imagination takes the wheel. Like a skilled yet somewhat mischievous artist, it starts painting vivid pictures on the canvas of your mind. It fills the void of darkness with colors of fear, turning the abstract into tangible, albeit imagined, threats. In the labyrinth of shadows, your mind starts to weave stories that are born from the depths of your subconscious, from the tales you've heard and the movies you've watched. Each creak of the floor, each rustle of the leaves, each whisper of the wind is interpreted as a sign of danger. Your imagination, in its relentless pursuit to make sense of the unknown, starts to morph the benign into the terrifying. A gust of wind becomes a spectral wail, a fallen branch becomes a lurking predator, a shadow becomes a hideous monster. The darkness around you is no longer just an absence of light. It's a breeding ground for your deepest fears, a stage for your worst nightmares. But why does our imagination do this? The answer lies in our evolution. Our ancestors needed to be alert to threats in their environment. A rustling in the bushes could mean a predator was near. So, they evolved to interpret ambiguous signals as potential dangers. This better safe than sorry approach helped them survive in a world filled with real threats. But in the modern world, this evolutionary trait can often lead us astray. In the darkness, when our senses are deprived of their usual inputs, our imagination kicks into overdrive. It begins to conjure up threats that aren't there, turning the unknown into the terrifying. Your mind, a remarkable organ that has the power to dream, to create, to solve complex problems, can also be your worst enemy. In the darkness, it can turn the harmless into the horrifying, the mundane into the monstrous. It's a stark reminder of the power of imagination, of its ability to shape our perception of reality. Your mind, your greatest ally, has become your worst enemy. You're not just lost in the darkness, you're lost in your thoughts. The struggle for control, for sanity, becomes a battle of the mind. It's like being trapped in a labyrinth of your own fears and uncertainties, where every turn reveals a new challenge. You might think that control is about forcing your way through, but it's not. It's about understanding and navigating your thoughts, about learning to silence the noise and listen to your intuition. It's about finding the strength within you to face your fears and rise above them. In this darkness, you are your own worst enemy, but also your greatest ally. You realize that you are not helpless. You have the power to control your thoughts, to calm your mind, to find a way out of the darkness. You remind yourself that darkness is not a permanent state, but a temporary phase. As you start to regain control, you start to see, not with your eyes, but with your mind. You begin to understand the darkness, to accept it, to make it a part of you. You realize that the darkness is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. It's a part of the journey, a part of the human experience. You start to find a rhythm, a balance. You learn to focus on your breath, to meditate, to find peace in the chaos. You learn to navigate the darkness with your senses, to trust your instincts, to rely on your intuition. You learn to let go of what you cannot control and focus on what you can. The fight for control is not easy. It's a battle that's fought in the depths of your mind, where every victory and defeat is deeply personal, but it's a battle worth fighting. Because in the end, it's not about the darkness, it's about you. In the end, the battle is not with the darkness, but with yourself. It's about finding your way, about finding your light, about finding yourself. And when you do, you realize that you were never truly lost. You were just on a journey of self-discovery, a journey towards the light. So, what have we learned from our journey into the darkness? We've explored the fascinating concept of total darkness, and how our mind reacts when all visual input is cut off. We've seen how our brain, in the absence of sight, can create its own reality. A reality that may be more terrifying than the darkness itself. We delved into the heart of the hypothetical scenario, becoming lost in complete darkness. We understood that it's not the darkness that scares us, but the unknowns that lurk within it. Our mind can conjure up all sorts of fearful images and scenarios, making us feel threatened and anxious. We then navigated through the realms of the human mind in darkness, seeing how it can become our worst enemy or our best ally. It's all about how we choose to perceive and interpret the darkness. We also discovered the power of our imagination, how it can fill the darkness with monsters or transform it into a peaceful, quiet space. The mind is an incredible tool, capable of creating and destroying fear in equal measure. In the battle for control, we learned that our fears are only as powerful as we allow them to be. We can choose to let them control us, or we can choose to control them. Next time the lights go out, remember this: you are not afraid of the dark, you're afraid of what your mind might fill it with.